Hello and welcome to Storytime Pitches. This is Kurt.
And I am Josh.
And welcome back to, I believe, our first episode in 2021.
That's true, yeah. Well, I mean, technically, I guess you could count the New Year's special, but we recorded that before 2021, so.
I was going to say, man, it's been a while. And we are sorry for that. Me and Josh actually have both purchased our houses very close to each other, and I have been doing a lot of remodels on my house, and I believe Josh has been doing the same, and that is kind of why we have not put out a episode for you guys in quite a while, but just would like to say welcome back.
Yes, for sure, yeah. We originally told everyone that we were going to try to do this maybe like once a month or so to start it out, kind of see where it was going, and then kind of had a bigger gap in there than we planned on. So I'm glad that we're back and we're doing it, but we're going to try to get some new content out a little bit more regularly in the coming weeks and months, just because, yeah, it's been crazy buying these houses and everything. I guess you don't realize how much work you have to put in a house sometimes.
Yeah, and actually I've learned that as you drive around and you see people's houses full of things and, just people's garages full of tools and stuff, basically you need all of that to maintain a home.
Oh, yeah. I had like a hammer and some screwdrivers, and I'm like, maybe I should hit the store because, yeah.
Yep, pretty much you just need about everything in Home Depot.
Yeah, right. Home Depot looking for a sponsorship. No, I'm just playing. But for real, I'm like probably halfway through with what my wife and I want to do. Like, we still want to do cabinets and floors and stuff, but we've definitely done a lot so far as painting and changing hinges and doorknobs, which I know you did too. So.
Oh, I've put in so many lights, it's ridiculous. And actually this week we are putting in our barn door.
Oh, yeah. For the bathroom?
Yes, sir.
Well, we want to thank everybody who tuned in for the last episode, the Batman Beyond. I know that was kind of a fan fiction type thing, but a lot of people seem to really enjoy it, and I enjoyed it, so I definitely think, fan fiction can be fun, especially if you have, intentions of actually getting in a writer's room one day and, hopping on with DC or whoever it is to actually make those things come a reality. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the show, is for us to get our ideas out there. And if it happens to be a fan fiction, I don't see why that would matter, because you could get a job on the next Batman Beyond reboot or something, and I think that'd be sick.
Right. And I think just having new perspectives and fresh ideas for people to kind of bounce their ideas off of,
yeah.
I think with a lot of people, they storyboard, and it takes many weeks to actually come across the actual story you're going to go with, on anything. I mean, whether it be movies or comics, but you need those people's perspectives and their life journeys to kind of collab into making that an actual reality.
Oh, yeah, and considering, the internet nowadays, studios and movie producers and things like that, they're listening to fans. Finally, after all these years, they're finally listening for the most part. I definitely think the studios still have their hand in there a little too much, because, yeah, I get it. You get your certain directors or whatever that want their vision, and it's a little overwhelming compared to, what a massive audience would actually enjoy. And I get it to a point, but, sometimes it's maybe stop hiring the same people for the same types of movies over and over and over. I have absolutely nothing against J.J. Abrams, but they just announced that he's doing another Superman reboot. And, I love J.J. Abrams, but it's J.J. Abrams had, Mission Impossible, Star Trek, Star Wars, and now DC, and I'm sure there's a couple other ones I'm forgetting right at the moment, but that's what I'm saying, is there's other minds out there like ours, just saying, that are on it, and there's a lot of other minds out there that can accomplish things that are just as awesome as J.J. Abrams, you know, but studios are forking up the money to put his name on it because it sells. And that kind of sucks for little guys like us that have been, you know, trying to get our foot in the door for years and years and years. And, you know, I think that the fan fiction thing, it opens up a lot of doors, because I think a lot of people are going to click on that when it says Batman Beyond movie, like live action movie. They're going to be like, what? Like, is this really happening? You know, and then they find out that it's a podcast with some dumb kids like us, and just like, oh, never mind. But, you know, when you really, like, we're grateful for all the people that listen to it all the way through, because that one was a really organic one, and we really just kind of spitballed back and forth, and it ended up being really fun. So if you haven't checked it out yet, please go back and check it out.
Oh, for sure. Like, that definitely, I mean, we spent many hours talking about that, and, you know, just, I think, like, having, you know, some ideas to go off of, but then, like, you know, that, yeah, as you said, it was very organic, and it was a lot of fun actually just to sit here and kind of just toss ideas. You know, I think that's something that I've always just enjoyed doing.
I mean, that's kind of our thing, is we take what people know and you love, and we think outside the box on it, but we don't go too far where it's just like, oh, okay, like, why did they do that? You know, or something. Like, we want it to be fun and interesting and new, you know, and that's what I loved about the Batman one, is it was completely different than anything ever in any comics or movies, and it also felt like the same thing, which was pretty cool.
Right.
But enough about Batman. I got a pretty good idea that I've been kind of messing with here and there. I don't really know where to go with it, so this is probably the best place to talk about it, is here on the podcast, if you're down.
Oh, I'm down.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what the name would be. I was thinking like Awakening, but I don't know. There's like a billion things out there called that, so we can mess with the name later. But it's basically like a mix between like Stranger Things and Predator, with a hint of Alien in there.
Well, those are three very, very big things, so I'm actually really excited to hear about this one.
Okay, so I guess I can just like spitball the main plot, and then we can kind of fill in some gaps if you're down.
Okay.
All right, so basically in the 80s, you know, Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, that was a pretty big thing. Even in the 90s, it was still pretty big. But in the 80s, you know, you think about that and you think about nostalgia, you know, like summer camp and going out there and setting up the tents and all that, and, you know, getting your badges, and of course s'mores. Like, how could you not have s'mores? But this particular story is about a female counselor, Cub Scout counselor, Boy Scout counselor, whatever. I'm thinking like they're kids, you know, they're probably between the ages of like 8 and 12. And
right.
The camp counselor is a woman, and she has a daughter, and she basically has an upper hand on the whole Cub Scouts thing, where she forces them to let her daughter join this scout. And like, they are going to go camping in the mountains for a night, and all the boys there are making fun of this little girl. Like, her name's Anna in my mind, but they make fun of her like all the time. Every single time the mom turns it back, like, they're throwing stuff at her or calling her names, or, you know, tripping her, stuff like that. Like, she's a girl, you know. But of course they're little boys, you know, so they're all like cooties and stuff, and, you know, some of them have weird feelings and don't know if they like girls yet, and it's just this, it's kind of more of a funny thing, you know, like just humorous overall. But definitely got that nostalgic 80s vibe, you know, rolling up on the old yellow bus up the mountainside and all that. And then they get up there and, you know, they build their tents and all that, and that's when we kind of find out that, you know, this girl is really out of place. And, you know, she tells her mom about it, and she's just like, look, I'm out of place too. Like, name another female, you know, Boy Scout, like, counselor out there anywhere. Like, so we'll do this together and stuff. And, like, the daughter's like, yeah, okay, like, you don't know what's happening every time you turn your back, but yeah, that's cool, Mom, whatever. So, you know, as the night goes on, they sit around the campfire and they're doing their s'mores, and mom breaks out the acoustic guitar, and just typical camping in the woods type stuff.
Kumbaya.
And, yeah, exactly. And this little girl, she's just a little bit more aware of things, because you think about just our society in general, and like a lot of people are so focused on what's in front of them that they don't realize what's going on around them. And like a perfect example is this is when I was a kid, my dad would take us up to the hills and go to the mountains and stuff, and we'd just go hiking around and stuff and have a good time. And he put my hand on my face one day, and he puts my hand about an inch or two away from my face, and he says, like, what do you see right now? And he did it to me and both of my brothers. And then my youngest brother, Jared, he goes, my hand. And then Jordan goes, my hand. And then I go, well, I see the city. And he's like, okay, that's exactly what I was looking for. Like, yeah, your hand is right in front of your face, but are you seeing what's past that? And that's kind of the whole idea of how this little girl sees this. But as they're sitting around the campfire having a good old time, she kind of just decides to look up at the stars and like realizes how beautiful it is. And we see the shade, or not the shade, but the dark silhouette of the trees and stuff in the night sky, and it just looks awesome, like a typical camping backdrop basically. And she's looking up at the stars and stuff, and then she sees like a shooting star, and it's a little bigger than you would imagine a shooting star being, and it looks like it crashes in the woods. And she jumps up and she's like, you guys see that? And then everyone's looking around like, what are you talking about? She's like, there's a shooting star, like. And they're like, oh yeah, I better make a wish, like making fun of her and stuff, because she likes all those Disney movies and princesses and all that stuff. Like, oh, I better wish for your prince. But she's just like, she's like a little kid, she's like 10 years old, but she's still kind of snarky, and she's like throw something back at him. I think that'd be kind of funny. But basically they're just like say that she's crazy and stuff, and then the mom tells her like, hey, like, if you want to fit in, like, you need to sit down and shut up, basically. Like, she's like, all right. So she sits down, and then she gets like really upset about it, and everybody just continues doing what they're doing, and they start telling scary stories around the fire and stuff. And as this is happening, she's just like, you know what, like, I'm gonna go figure out what this is. So she sneaks out of the circle, and nobody seems to even notice that she disappeared. And she pulls out her flashlight, and she's got her backpack on, and she's all prepared and stuff, because she doesn't know what she's gonna find. So she's trekking through this forest in the middle of the night, and she can see the glowing in the distance from the star that hit the ground, and like there's flames around it and stuff. So she gets up to it, and it looks different than a rock or a meteor or something. And all of a sudden, like, a hatch opens, and it's a ship, and this like space alien, humanoid alien in an actual suit with a helmet on and everything, stumbles out of the ship, and obviously in pain, like distressed, like something is going on. He falls on the ground, and he's kind of crawling around, and he's like patting at his suit and trying to like get his composure. And she's just sitting there with her flashlight, just staring at him like, oh my God, there's an alien in front of me right now. And like he sees her, and he like reaches for her, and then he like pulls his hand back, and then he like lifts up his helmet, and he takes his helmet off. And he's definitely an alien, but it's not like a terrifying alien. It's just, I wouldn't say like a cute alien, but imagine like just one of the grays, but like more humanoid, big eyes kind of thing. And he falls down, and he dies. This little girl's like freaking out, like, oh my God, like, what is happening? Like, there's an alien here, and he's dead, and this, like, and so the alien's eyes like start like bleeding and all kinds of stuff, because we're assuming that the Earth's atmosphere is doing this to him. So she freaks out, and she screams, and she runs back to the camp, so she's screaming, and the flashlight's going all over her, running back to the camp. She gets up there, and then she scares the crap out of everyone, because they're in the middle of this scary story. And everyone jumps up, and they're freaking out and stuff. and they're like, what's wrong? Like, and Anna like starts explaining, like, there was a shooting star, but it was a ship, and it landed over there in the woods. I know I wasn't supposed to go out there, but I went out there anyway, and this guy came out of the ship, and it was an alien, and his eyes were bleeding, and he died. Like, and she's freaking out, and these kids are like, yeah, maybe slow down on the s'mores there, a little too much sugar going on for you. Right. Just start making fun of her, it's basically the girl who cried wolf type situation, and the mom like tries to, coddle her or whatever, like, it's okay, like, you don't need to act out and this, like, she completely disregards what's going on, and they try to tell her, like, it's all in her head and stuff, like, let's just, call it a night, and, everything will be good in the morning. So then we kind of go back to the ship, and we can see that there's, like, something coming out of this alien, like something that was using its body as like a host. This one's a scary alien, but it comes out of him somehow. I don't want to go full chest burster on this or anything, but it comes out of him, and it is smaller, so it definitely like needs to feed to get bigger, and then it slithers around the forest or something and finds like a bunny and eats it all violently and stuff. We can see after it does that it starts growing a little bit, grows like another appendage or something, like just make it really nasty and fast and scary. So we go back to the camp, and of course, like, the girl asks if she can sleep in her mom's tent, and her mom's like, no, like, how are you ever gonna, be one of the boys if you're sleeping with your mom? Like, I know it sucks, but you gotta try to fit in a little bit. And it's kind of stereotypical. It definitely wouldn't happen with the way the world is right now, but in the 80s that was a thing. It was like, for boys it was be a man, and for girls it was, be a girl and little princess and all that stuff. So she makes her go sleep in the tent with all the boys, and of course they're still making fun of her and stuff, and they plan on like pranking her in the middle of the night, doing the shaving cream thing or something. But as this is happening, like everybody falls asleep, and these kids wake up, and they got their flashlights, and they're getting the shaving cream ready and open up their backpack and all that. And, they see like a shadow move across the outside of the tent. And, they're wondering what the heck it is.
It's a bear.
Like, whatever, just get back to the... It's a bear. It's totally a bear.
It's a bear. At this point.
Yeah, so they're like ripping the corners of their pillows and pulling out like feathers and stuff, and getting ready to like tickle her face or whatever and get her to do the shaving cream thing. And like as this is happening, this alien thing is on the outside of the tent. We don't see it because you see it from the inside, but you can see like a shadow of it, and it has like almost like a scorpion tail, and it comes up and starts like slitting the tent. And then literally like as this kid's about to go in, and like they tickle her face once, and she's like, her hands like moving, like almost getting close to doing it. And then right when he goes in again, this arm like comes in and just grabs this kid and rips him out of the tent. And then everybody starts screaming, and the girl wakes up like looking around, and like the shaving cream's in her hand and stuff. Like, but I really don't know where to go from here. But I wanted it to be like terrifying, like, because this thing is literally killing kids. And I know that's horrible, but it is a movie. It's a movie, guys. But just to show how terrifying this alien is, like, it would have to go after these kids. But the thing is these kids are its immediate source of food and growing bigger, faster, stronger. And the only line of defense before this actually gets to like the nearest town are these kids. So they have to rile together and figure it out and work as a team and accept that this little girl Anna is actually awesome, and they have to fight this alien in the middle of the woods.
Well, and like I was gonna ask you, I was like, so like, are all of these kids kind of like okay throughout this whole thing, or if like most of the kids, aside from just like a few, are kind of like the cannon fodder for the entire movie?
I would assume a few of them are, the ones that you hate stereotypically, you got to have those douchebags in the movie. But I think those kids will get it, and then maybe other ones don't quite get it, but they get taken, and we find out later that they're strung up from trees like cocoons or something crazy, you know, like way up high in these trees. I could imagine a scene like that where like all the kids are freaking out, but you can hear that the kid's up there like still making noise, like he's obviously alive, and then like this girl like having to take it upon herself to, you know, like Boy Scout it up and like rip off the strap on her backpack and wrap it around the tree and start climbing up this tree, you know, holding the knife in her mouth to go cut this kid down, you know, and then the alien hears it almost like a spider in a web, you know, knows what's going on and starts like jumping through these trees all fast to get back to its like hive or where it's holding these kids. Like just stuff like that, I can imagine it being like really creepy. And you know, most of it takes place all in one night, but I can imagine some things like early in the morning, you know, where they are getting towards the end of the story and actually figure out what they're going to do to either kill it or send it away or whatever's going to happen. But yeah, I think it'd be an interesting story overall. And of course, like the girl would be shy and reserved and all these things. And she'd be terrified out of her mind once all this stuff starts happening. But I hate to say it, but we're probably going to have to kill her mom. and then when her mom dies is kind of the motivation that she's not going to stand for this thing anymore. And she puts on her Sarah Connor.
You know, and you know, like I've always thought, like, I mean, I've always thought a lot about aliens and stuff like that. And like, you know, we obviously think of, you know, these grays and, you know, like kind of like the stereotypical, you know, aliens and stuff like that. But
yeah,
you know, me, I tend to think, you know, like an alien is kind of like anything that you want it to be. I mean, it's something that you can't really explain. So if you have something that's abnormally like large, okay, that is an alien to you, because it's going to take your mind some time to like process actually what this thing actually is.
Yeah.
And so, you know, like, what if, I mean, I know that you said like this thing is stringing them up. Like, what if this thing's actually just like a form of spider, but from space? So
yeah, it could be. I was almost imagining kind of like The Thing, you know, so like as it eats and grows, it changes the way that it looks and the way it behaves. So at first it might act like a slug or something, you know, and then as it grows bigger, it might act more like a monkey or a chimpanzee, like swinging through the trees and stuff, you know. And then yeah, maybe it could start acting like a spider, you know, but it takes on like different qualities as it grows bigger, but it doesn't forget the previous quality, you know, but it does change the way that it looks. And you know, just because it's like you said, like an alien can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be humanoid, you know. It doesn't have to have 2 legs and 2 arms. It can have random things like a tail or wings even. Like I don't even know. Like we'd have to like, you know, refer to our creature department to see what they could come up with, you know, our fictional creature department.
I mean, like a giant monkey-like creature that has arms like a spider. I mean, that's pretty fucking terrifying, especially in a sense of like it's back in the 80s, because everything's scarier in the 80s. And
oh yeah,
like, I mean, like the fact that it's has heightened senses, you know, to like everything. So
oh yeah,
I mean,
and I want it to be like super intelligent as far as hunting goes, you know, like the Predator. I think everybody forgot that the Predator was a freaking terrifying movie, you know, when they started making it all sci-fi with the sequels and stuff. But the first one is absolutely terrifying, and that's kind of the vibe I wanted to go for this. But you know, with the Stranger Things, obviously rated R with the kids dying and stuff like that. But to make it fun, I guess, like campy. I know that's a little too on the nose there, but like campy, but also like whoa at the same time. But I kind of imagined. I mean, I like the way we were going with this creature design, but as far as the texture of it, I kind of imagined it not necessarily keeping that texture. Like I imagined it at first, you know, the first couple stages being kind of like The Fly, like Jeff Goldblum, The Fly, like how he looks towards the end of the movie, like nasty, bubbly skin and all that. Right. Like just pasty, like an oatmeal creature.
Ew.
Yeah, like that's kind of how I imagine it. And then like as it evolves, it gets more slick and predator like. Well, not like the predator, but just hunting predator like aerodynamics and things like that.
Right.
And that's kind of the thing is like these kids want to fight, but they're also getting picked off, and it's making this thing stronger and faster and smarter. And it's like, which one's going to get there faster? Are these kids going to be able to stop it before it gets, to be literally invincible?
I mean, like, there's like a lot of like creativity that you could do. I mean, like when you start looking at like Friday the 13th and like the kills that he would do, like, he would use like a sleeping bag, kind of stuff like that. Like, that's something that you could kind of almost play into this, but with kids versus an alien. And
oh yeah, especially being Boy Scouts. Like, I mean, that's the whole thing with Boy Scouts. They're supposed to be able to think on their toes and come up with these contraptions and traps and weapons. And it really puts their brains to the test too.
Now, does this thing have like have you thought of like a weakness for this actual creature? Like, yeah, I mean, like, obviously, the more notable ones are like fire, but like, is this thing fire resistant? Is it, like resilient against, taking a beating, that kind of stuff?
I think realistically, if I had to explain it, which I wouldn't want to over explain it in the movie, because I feel like sometimes when you explain too much, it loses the charm, it loses the magic that actually makes it scary. But without going too into that, I think I would make it almost that once they use some kind of weapon on it, whether it be fire or shooting it with a bow and arrow or something, it learns how to adapt to what just happened to it. So maybe the fire thing doesn't quite happen right away because it's a little smarter than that, but eventually, they trap it and, are able to throw fire at it or something, and then it survives, and hardens its skin and like evolves into, where you can't burn it anymore. So the first time they might hit it with some arrows, some bow and arrows, or maybe some pocket knives or something like that. And then it learns how to heal faster. So maybe the first time it happens, he's bleeding all over the place and slithers back into the woods, and that's the end of it. But it would be kind of cool that we weren't following the kids the whole time. We could go back to him every now and then, and he found like a little foxhole type thing, and he's, like tending to his wounds kind of thing. I know we're going a little Predator on this again, but I mean, that movie did come out like 30 some years ago. So like for today's audience, these kids wouldn't even know what the Predator was if you asked them. But yeah, like just actually show it here and there, not every time, maybe just show it like once or twice. So you get the idea like that whatever they do to it, it's figuring out how to adapt to that so it doesn't happen to it again. And I think that's what makes it like the ultimate killing machine. And they have to, I don't even know if they would be able to ever stop it, but as far as weakness goes, I think just at first, when it first lands, is probably its weakest point when it first is birthed out of this host alien.
So, all right, so roll with me on this one. All right, I mean, kind of just like the little hamster wheels going in my head here, but okay, we have a creature that basically is learning from, the things that it's attacking, or getting attacked by. And, like, I like the fact that you said, like, going back, and, like, going back to the creature and actually showing what the creature's doing to heal or learn and stuff like that. Because not a lot of horror films do that. They don't ever really side with the bad guy, basically. Like, they don't ever really show what's going on in the bad guy's head or anything. But
yeah, like how does Michael Myers get around that building so fast and now he's at that other door?
Right. And I get that, like, sometimes not explaining things makes it very, like, creepy. But in this term, okay, like, you got to think about it like we have kids that are dealing with this and dealing with it within their only means to deal with it. So what if they never actually like killed this creature? Like what if this, I mean, you got to think it's an alien. It only knows the alien that came from the ship, but it only knows these kids so far throughout like the, in on Earth. But what if they just scare it enough and like they hurt it enough and scare it enough that he's very resilient against it, but at the same time like he actually is getting pushed back. It's just like maybe this thing on its own planet has never come across something that's been so resilient against being attacked by it. So
Well, the way I kind of imagine it is like this alien that crashed on Earth was basically fleeing his home planet because of these aliens. Like I imagine it like a virus, and it got into these people, somehow, or this race, like somehow started in their race, and then killed them. Like grew inside of them like a parasite and killed them and popped out and decided that it was gonna do the same thing that it's doing to these kids. I mean, I don't think we would ever really explain this in the movie. It would just be kind of implied, that this alien that crash landed here was super selfish, first off, for knowing that he had this parasite in him and crashing on a whole nother planet, to infest us. But I think that's what would kind of make it interesting is maybe the way we explain that is at some point in the movie, once the thing has evolved to a certain level, it can actually like, shoot out spores that can infect people. Maybe it doesn't happen like right away. It happens towards the end of the movie kind of thing, but like they go in to attack it and like a porcupine would, react. It, shoots quills out or something, and they go like up a tree and like Anna dodges them or something. And then, they get the upper hand and they somehow get it to leave him alone for a second. But then she turns around and like one of the kids got one in his leg or something, next thing you know, he's kind of sick and started to get woozy and like stuff like that. And then his eyes start bleeding like how the alien was. And then, she tells the other kids now that they've kind of ganged together, like this is what happened to the guy that landed. Like we're going to have another one of those things on our hands. Like we have to kill this guy or kill this kid or something, figure out some kind of way to keep that from that happening to that kid, or maybe because he is a kid, he dies from being sick because his body can't handle it or something.
right.
But I would want it to be like this thing is solo, and I would almost imagine that maybe these kids don't kill it, or they like maybe at the end of it there's only like Anna and like two of the boys left over out of the whole scout, but maybe they're smart enough to go back to that ship and see if there's something on that ship to fight this alien. Like obviously their little sticks and bows and arrows and stuff ain't gonna work. So they go back here to the ship and, I imagine it not being like a huge ship. It's more like a pod, like a solo pod, enough, like an escape pod, basically. So I imagine that there's probably some kind of emergency kit or something on there and like thrusters. So maybe the end of the movie, they, Anna uses herself as bait, to lure this thing back to the ship. And of course, that would be terrifying and super suspenseful, but, she's got to get this thing in the ship. And of course it's just standing right there in the hatch, like the doorway. And, she has no way out of it, but, maybe she puts it upon herself to actually figure out how to use the thrusters, closes the hatch on this thing and shoots them both into space, or tries to anyway. Maybe it goes up like so far and then it just like the thrusters give out and then it just falls down and crashes and like lands in like a lake or something, or like right next to the town, and that be the end of the movie or something really ominous.
Right. Well, I was kind of thinking like, like what if this thing kind of became its own urban legend? I mean, like, you think about like kids telling stories, that happen out in the woods and kind of stuff like that. Like, if they'd push this thing back to, like, let's say like a cave system or whatever, and, it's it gets just frightened enough to where like it doesn't want to like come out because it doesn't know how much more it can take, like, because obviously these kids are pretty resilient against it and they're really fighting back as much as they can, but
Yeah,
at the
and
same time,
obviously the
like,
thing wouldn't know that it could evolve yet. Like it would be learning that it can evolve. Like it would have no idea. It's not like it woke up from being a parasite and was like, "Hey, I can evolve." Like he would have to like retreat and be like, "Hey, like oh, okay, like I can fix this. All right, let's do it again." You know?
right. And I just thought like, like what it like, if we ended up not killing it, what if this thing just stayed in the cave systems? And like maybe for like another movie that I could actually like, it actually tries to come back out and attack again, but because it's already been attacked so much that it's like, oh like I'm trying to like preserve my life here.
Whoa, okay. I like that. I have an idea for that. Okay. So let's imagine that this thing doesn't feel like this until the end of the movie. So at first, it retreats a couple times because it thinks that it's weak and can't handle this. But once it realizes it can heal itself, it keeps going after out there and hunting these kids down. But yeah, maybe at the end of the movie, Anna gets on the ship and tricks it, and she knows she can't escape, so she ends up like using the thrusters, and the ship takes off like it's heading towards the atmosphere, like to escape the Earth, and she doesn't care because she knows she's saving the town. Even as a young kid, like she's smart enough to know that, and the two other boys that survive or something are just sitting there on the ground like, wow, like I can't believe that she wasn't able to get out. Like she sacrificed herself to save the whole world. Like, and then that's when we have our, women empowerment moment, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then, so the kids are telling each other, like, we have to tell everyone, like, we can't let her story not be told, kind of thing. And that's kind of the end of it that we see of that. And as this is happening, the ship's like thrust in through and it's about to break the atmosphere. And all of a sudden it starts shaking and then the thrusters give out and then it's just a freaking free fall. So like this alien is pissed at this little girl for tricking him into this. So he's like literally about to like slash her up or something. And right when this happens, the ship starts shaking, thrusters give out and it starts free falling. And it just goes zero gravity and they're just rolling around in this, the ship, and it falls like in the middle of a lake. And, we're way off from where we started at the campgrounds. And, she somehow the hatch opens and then it crashes in the lake, it sinks down, and somehow like we're just got this wide open shot of like the lake, and it's like this beautiful summer morning, and it's like all crazy, and then it gets super calm like once the ship goes underwater, and then you see her come up like that she survived, and she's like gasping for air, and she's like swimming towards the shore, like swimming towards the camera, and then you just see this huge like alien, like it's absolutely ginormous, like double the size of what it was last time, because I imagine it being like a 8 foot tall like alien by the end when it enters the hatch, and then now it's probably like 20 feet, and has multiple appendages, like you were saying, like the spider legs type thing. But now that it's hit the water, it's like adapted to that and almost has like squid like things, like a kraken. And as it's coming out of the water, it starts to go invisible at the same time. So like just imagine it like phasing in and out of being invisible because it's adjusting to the water and the sun and all that at the same time. And she just pops up out of the water like and like swimming towards the shore and stuff. And then it's just like kind of peaceful. You're like, oh my God, she survived, you know? And then bam, like this huge thing freaking comes out of the water, slams down, and it starts like phasing in and out of being invisible and just swimming after her like super fast. And, you know, she's like backing up the shore and stuff when she gets on the land and all that. And like, I could just imagine it like getting right in her face and just staring at her like, I'm going to freaking rip your head off, little girl. And then like, it just gets this like mutual respect kind of thing. And then like backs into the water and then crawls up the other side of the lake and then goes into like a cave system. And that's the end of it. Like it just decided not to go after her anymore.
Okay, like all right, maybe I watch like too much Godzilla, but like
There's nothing wrong with that.
What if like this little girl became like the like familiar for this thing? Like it's a parasite that has to like grow within somebody at first to like actually, you know, start to evolve. But this little girl has shown so much resilience against it that it hates it enough, but it at the very end, like when she's gasping for air and it could just easily kill her, it takes like pity on her because she took pity on it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, like, you know, like, and then, you know, they have this like, you know, mutual like connection, and this thing
like an unspoken thing,
right? And like, you know, like, and I think that would be awesome because then this girl has survived something that's horrifying. All these kids are dead. Her mom is dead. She gets found, and then she's the only one that really knows like eventually like what would become this urban legend of this lake. And you know, you could totally do so much with that. Like you can go, I mean, you can do a sequel of it. Like you can just leave it as an urban legend. I mean, all that, but dude, that would be crazy. And just that where she's like swimming out and you just see this massive thing come up behind her, just like ferociously like swimming after her to kill her.
Yeah.
Oh, that's terrifying.
Dude, like I could imagine it being pretty crazy. And then we could even have like an after credit scene where she's like older now, you know, she's like in her 20s or something, and she's, you know, hiking through these woods with like her boyfriend or whatever. And then he's like, you know, I don't understand why you come up here every year. And then she's just like, you know, it's just memories. Like I have to, it's part of me. I have to make sure everything's good, you know? And then she like, you know, walks around and then she's like, stop, stop, stop. And then they like stop. And you can like, it shows her like her face, but you can like see like something invisible like moving behind her.
Ooh. Maybe she like sacrifices her boyfriends to the damn thing.
No.
It's like,
all right. We're getting like, really far off track now.
Why do you always come up here? Because I have to. And then it just fucking slams out of nowhere, just eats the fucking boyfriend.
See, I imagine it more like she has to basically make sure that it's being behaved, you know, that it's not going towards the town or anything. You know, like she keeps it in check, basically.
Right.
I mean, that might be a little cheesy. Like, there probably could be a couple different ways we could do that, you know, or like, see, or what if the after credit scene, like she's sitting there, you know, at like her college campus or something, and like everything seems like it's good, and then she like walks by a TV and they're talking about like excavators that are out in those woods that found an ancient cave system and are mining for something, and then like they got attacked. So like she's watching the news and they're talking about it and they're like warning, the following footage is, you know, not suitable for children, like viewers beware. And then like it shows like this thing come out of this cave and just wreck these like construction excavator workers and stuff, you know. And then she like goes to her trunk and like opens it, like pulls out a shotgun and like peels out like to drive back to the woods, and then that's kind of the movie ending right there.
Um. Okay. That actually makes like I mean like yeah, because like she would kind of be an outcast because she's grown up knowing that this thing is out there. Like she's tried to tell people, but they're like, "Oh, you know what? Like you're fucking crazy. Like this is a, you know, like it happened when you were a kid. Like it was probably just like a fucking deer or something that you seen, and it was crazy." And it's just like
Yeah,
at the same time, and like everybody says, like at the same time, like there was a mass murderer on the loose. Like that's probably who killed your mom and everybody else.
yeah,
And
like a cover up.
yeah, and she's grown up like knowing that this thing is actually real, and then like now that it actually got caught on camera, like she's already like well aware of what's going on, so she's just gonna you know drive out there by herself and like take care of what she couldn't when she was a kid.
Like, I think it'd be a really cool after credit scene like that, and then like everything that you're saying kind of sounds like it'd be more like a sequel. Like it definitely seems like a sequel to wrap up the loose ends, kind of just like let's just give them a sequel because the first one did so good. But yeah, like she like is ahead of the government on it and everything, because obviously if it got on tape, like the government would be on it, like, oh, aliens, like we're going over there. But she knows what this alien can do and how it evolves and what it needs to evolve and all that. So she'd be going out there to basically try to tell them not to do all these things that they're going to do anyway, and detain her and stuff. And that would be kind of interesting. But
Like,
we're getting
like
we're getting
maybe
too
she
far
has
ahead
to
of
like
ourselves.
maybe she has to convince the government like, look, you can't use any firepower against it any more than what we did as kids, because anything that you throw at it basically like it's going to learn from it and it's going to become stronger than what you guys already have. So
Oh yeah.
they have to
Yeah.
kill it with like primitive shit. Like, like you have an entire fucking army out there with just like spears
Rocks.
and like sticks and rocks.
That'd be ridiculous.
That'd be kind of cool though. I mean, like, what if like what if the army has to like bring in like specialists from like around the world, like they like I mean like people that can throw fucking spears, like I mean dead center on target, like
They bring in like Olympians and stuff.
yeah, like like it has to be something within the means of what they've already done, because God forbid if it gets shot by a bullet, like it's going to become bulletproof at that point,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
because
don't
there
know.
wouldn't be any guns in the first movie. Like the first movie would just strictly be skill. That's why I think like a sequel might be pushing it. I could see the first one doing so well that studios would want a sequel, but I kind of like leaving it just up in the air. Like not everything is completely explained. Like the virus is implied. It's not really in your face kind of thing, and the story is just a redemption arc for these kids that are just punk kids making fun of this little girl that can band together and work as a team. Maybe the mom, she's not a jerk like we make her out to be. Like she's a good mom. She's just trying to explain to the daughter, like, with the way the world is right now in the 80s, like this is what you have to do to fit in. Like you'll always be an outcast if you don't try to be normal. And it sounds like a jerk move on the mom's part to act like that, but that's what society expected of women in the 80s. And like, why would we make a movie that didn't capture what it was actually like to be in the 80s? I think that's kind of the whole Stranger Things vibe, is like Stranger Things does that all the time. It's not like they're afraid to do that. I think that that's kind of interesting to show newer generations like what people had to go through and what society was actually like back in the day. So I think that there's a lot of social underlinings in the movie that also go along with the horror aspect of it, and adding to character building, and actually making you care about some of these kids as they, change their temperament towards this girl. Maybe there's like one kid that, does feel bad for her, but also doesn't want to lose his friends, so he kind of sits there and laughs and stuff sometimes too, but he doesn't actually do anything himself. Maybe he's one of the ones that actually make it to the end. But that'd be nuts, dude. But yeah, I would love the sequel too. Like, I think it'd be super cheesy, direct to video or VOD kind of sequel. But yeah, I could imagine them actually getting a hold of this thing and like containing it in like this like giant terrarium bubble type thing, and just like monitoring it and learning from it and experimenting on it. And her realizing that eventually it's going to infect these people and we're going to have thousands, if not millions of those things running around the earth, so maybe she takes it upon herself to somehow like get out there to that lake and pull up that ship again, and maybe one of the scientists doesn't agree with what they're doing and, helps her rebuild the ship, so she crashes it into this dome that they're holding it in and, has to fight it again and get it to get back to that mutual understanding. And then she has to get it on the ship and get it to fly out of there, but now with today's technology, there'd be no excuse why they couldn't, autopilot that thing out of there.
Right. Well, and then, and
space.
I think that's pretty interesting too. Like, the fact that like whenever we think about the government and, like dealing with, something foreign, we always think of like just muscling it out kind of thing. But
yeah.
This is one of those like things that they can't do that. Like they can't muscle their way into it. Like it has to like basically imprint on this girl again because it's already done it before.
Yeah, it's like if they would have just left it alone, it probably would have just ate animals and that would have been the end of it.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. It almost seems like a metaphor for like don't overreach your power because it will come back to bite you in the end, kind of thing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, those are the best movies like that are straightforward. Like, oh, that was an awesome horror movie, but then like when you really think about it, you see all the detail of what they put into that movie. Like the creative, like you were saying earlier, with the life experiences and stuff. Like that's what a lot of people put in the movies, whether it's writing or directing or any of that. And they're things that you would never really pay attention to on the surface, but when you dive deeper into it, like you can see all that. And I think this definitely hits a lot of that. Like I can almost imagine like, the kids that didn't believe her, like maybe early on in the movie, they come across the slug thing, but it looks like a log or something weird, like it's playing dead. And they're like, what is that? And they start poking it with a stick and stuff like that. And they're just dumb kids. And they're like, oh, let's set it on fire or something, like it looks like it's alive. Like maybe it's a skinned skunk or a skinned raccoon or something, like a wolf got a hold of it or something like, oh, let's burn it and put it out of its misery. Just stupid kid stuff, Right. And maybe like them doing this is what antagonizes it in the first place to come back to the camp in the middle of the night and start picking them off. That would be interesting too, because it like I said, if they would have just left it alone, it probably would have just ate animals and figured out how to live in the woods by itself. But since they antagonized it, it started realizing like, hey, like these creatures are not good creatures, like, and also I can heal from what they just did to me. So like, I'm going to go back and make them my food source now.
Right. That's kind of an interesting like twist. I mean, I know that you brought up, the Thing and, stuff like that, but, the Thing actually didn't, it didn't have any human aspects to it. It didn't have any like, moral values or, like it was just there to basically just kill,
Yeah.
That's its only purpose. But doing this, like, that would be kind of like crazy because you're kind of just like lightly piggybacking off of the fact that like it's a host creature, but the fact that it has to, or it evolves because of what happens to it. Yeah. I think that's what kind of makes it really cool and like kind of a unique, kind of story.
Yeah, I mean, like, do you ever watch the pitch meetings on YouTube?
Uh-uh.
Okay, you definitely got to watch these. They're like, and everybody listening, like, if you've never watched the pitch meetings on YouTube, you got to watch them. It's this one guy, and he does like the studio executive and the guy pitching the movie, and they go back and forth about this movie, and they just rip movies apart, like stupid stuff that you probably thought about when you saw the movie, and then a whole bunch of other stuff that you definitely didn't think about. But then when you do, you're like, wow, that's really bad. Why did they put that in the movie? It's kind of like Honest Trailers almost does that too. But like I watch a lot of that, and he hits it on the nose every single time. You know, like he just did one on like Prometheus, and I know we're talking similar alien type story right now, but Prometheus, he rips that movie apart, and it's just I have always like thought about if I were to make a professional movie or a TV show or something out there that I would want those things that people are picking out to be minimum. Like I understand you have to jump through hoops to make it entertaining and get to things faster, but you know, like I feel like this story that we just came up with, it's pretty solid. Like it could happen, you know, with something landing on Earth like that and having, you know, a host body with a parasite in it and this thing coming out. But, you know, by these kids messing with it and stuff, it gives it motivation. It gives it a reason to come after these kids. Like, it's not like it's just the pitch meetings guy. He says it all the time. He says, you know, like, well, why is the bad guy doing this? You know, and he's like, because he's evil. It's like, oh, that sounds about right. You know, like they have actually no reason to be evil, you know, and that's what makes it a little bit more solid for a story like this. Is everything happens for a reason, and everything leads into it for a reason. Like we get our hero out of it for a reason, you know, and it's like, yeah, maybe her going in the ship, like she just doesn't automatically know how to fly it. Like she's obviously gonna have to, you know, pull a Arnold. Yeah, pull a Arnold and plan this out while the thing's away healing itself, and you know, like learn the layout of the land. Like she's a Boy Scout, you know, so she's got to learn the layout of the land, like traps and things like that, to actually lure it into this ship. You know, she got to home alone it into the ship. And not only that, she has to figure out how to power on this ship. So she's going to need to spend time doing that. So, you know, while she's setting up the trap, maybe one of the other boys is in the ship just pushing buttons and stuff, you know. And I think that would make it really interesting, is because obviously she's not going to be able to pilot the ship out of there, but that doesn't mean that she can't figure out which button turns on the thrusters and will push that thing off the ground. And that's basically all she has to do. So that's what I say. Like, I like this idea because it can't really be ripped apart too much as far as being factual. It's just a good, entertaining, thrilling horror movie. And I like the fact that it can be with these kids and stuff, that it can have a lot of humor to it. You know, because kids are mean, man. Like I could imagine them being in the worst situations. Like kids have already died and stuff, and these kids still joking about it because that kid peed his pants last summer, you know? Right. Stuff like that. Like, who cares if little Jimmy died? Like, that kid totally peed his pants at camp last year.
Well,
yeah, stuff like that.
And you know, in the fact that it's like, in a way, in its own like little way too, it's very like, it has like a very simplistic, you know, like baseline to it. And you know, like as you said, like, I mean, what are movies? They're entertainment, but the fact that it like especially right now, a lot of movies are like way too complicated to think about. And so like people actually have to go online and they actually have to look up like what the hell they just watched, because
what actually happened.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, like, I get
it was all
that,
a dream.
Like, sometimes people pull some shit out, you know, out of their heads and they try to put it in a movie, but like, I'm sorry, but like not everybody's that complicated. If you can like figure it out while you're watching it, like, you know, congratulations. But for the 90 other people, you know, of the 90% of the other people that have watched it, like, they just either will shut it off and just be like, okay, I don't understand that fucking movie, and they leave it at that. Or they'll spend like, maybe you'll get like 10% of them that actually will go online and look up like, okay, well, what the hell was the meaning of this? And so I think like that's kind of cool because it's easy to follow, but I think like everybody understands the what do they call it? Like the humane side of, like you shouldn't, torture things. And, obviously this thing only reacted to being tortured, like it grew stronger because it was getting picked on, but it did it in its own way. Like it's only grown that way because they attacked it. So
what? And it's the same thing with Anna. Like she grows from the same types of treatment.
Right.
So it comes full circle by the end of the movie.
Yep. And I think that's something that everybody, I mean, obviously if you watch this, like you would get it, like you would understand it. And then, but that's kind of a cool, unique way to like look at horror, is that sometimes the human beings are actually like the worst part of it because, as you said, like it was a slug at first, and had they never messed with it, it probably would have maintained being kind of a slug creature.
Oh yeah, and there's metaphors all over the place. Like these kids wouldn't be so bad if they weren't raised the way that they were, picking on her and doing all this stuff,
So I like that. That's a good idea.
I'm not so sure about the name, but like, I mean, we could come up with another name. I might name this podcast that, but we'll see. But we thank everybody for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed this original idea that we came up with.
And definitely. And thank you guys again for coming back, and we hope to continue doing more in the future for you guys.
Yes, and please, like us and follow us on social media and share these podcasts. Like, make these things become a reality rather than us just, talking to each other about them. But you can find us at Storytime Pitch on Twitter, and everything else is at Storytime Pitches for Facebook and Instagram and all those good things. We're probably going to start putting these on YouTube here pretty soon too. So pay attention for that. I'll put the previous episodes on there too. But thank you guys for listening.
Hey, have a great one.
This is Storytime Pitches.